I made $30,000 last month trading with a 47% win rate. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you how I was able to make money while losing more trades than I want. I'm going to be breaking down my full strategy to the setups that align with my strategy to the amount of risk that I was allocating per trade. So let's get right into the video. So as you can see right here, we're on my TradeZella stats for the month of September, and I'm making a net P&L of $30,000 this month with a trade win percentage of 47. I end up losing more trades than I actually won. That was due to my profit factor, right, of 4.67%. My daily win percentage was 64%, and my average win to loss ratio was 5.25 to 1. So as you can see right here, I ended up losing more trades than I won, but due to the fact that I had a high risk to reward ratio and I ended up having a couple quality A+ setups, I was able to come out the month fairly green with these tough market conditions, as you can see. So now I'm going to go over some of the best trades and what I was looking for really all month. So before I get into the trades that I took this month, I want to mention that my risk is standardized throughout my trading. Whenever I'm trading, I'm risking on average $1,000 per trade. And if I have an A+ setup, I'll risk $2,000. So it's not like I'm risking an extreme amount to make an extreme amount. I'm risking around $1,000 per trade. That's my R multiple. And on A+ setups, I'll risk more. So depending on the setup that I take, I'll risk accordingly. So as you can see, as we scroll down to my P&L calendar for the month of September, and as you can see, there's not really many trades that stood out this month. It was a pretty slow month. Setup wise, intraday, there wasn't too many opportunities. September is generally a slower month in the markets, and especially intraday, there wasn't too many quality setups. The only quality trade that we ended up hitting this month was on Tesla, and it ended up being an absolutely beautiful A+ setup, and that ended up making majority of my P&L. So I ended up making $15,000 on this trading setup, and that actually accounted for over half my P&L. So if I didn't end up taking this Tesla trade, it would have ended up being a pretty slow month for me, but I was able to capture this A+ setup, and it really made up for my whole month. The rest of the time, I wasn't really risking too much this month. There wasn't really any quality setups intraday. I ended up not taking quite a few trades in the past really 2 weeks of the overall month because I haven't really seen any quality A+ setups intraday for me to warrant any particular size in the markets. So now let's go on to some of the best trades that I took this month and how I was able to capitalize on these market conditions. So as you can see right here, we're on my first trade example, and this one is on NVDA. This was Tuesday, September the 3rd. This was actually my first trade of the month. Ended up making around $5,000 on this one. Traded 40 contracts with an average adjusted cost of $8,000. And as I always talk about, it's not the amount of money that I put into the trade or how much size that I took. It's about the risk amount. So in this case, I was risking around 1.8 on the contracts, which ended up being around $1,600. So $1,600 worth of risk on the contract end up coming out to around a 3R risk to reward ratio. And now let's go into the charts to see exactly what I was looking for. So as you can see, we're on the 1 hour time frame on NVIDIA, and what we recently had before this day is that we had earnings. So we actually had bearish earnings on NVIDIA. We broke underneath our key higher time frame gap level, which is our 122. So now you can see this area was previously used as support. We broke underneath it, and now we're essentially using this as resistance. So I'm bearish coming into the day and coming into the week because we had that higher time frame bias. We broke structure. We also had bearish earnings as well. And you can also see that on NVIDIA, what we're creating is this wedge pattern towards the downside. So we're bearish on the higher time frames. We're bearish intraday. What we're going to be looking for is continuation towards the downside. So you can see that coming into the market open, we're fairly bearish on the higher time frames. We're bearish on the lower time frames as well. You can see that we're underneath our previous day's low. So you can see we're underneath our previous day's low and the day before that as well. So we're very bearish on NVIDIA. We're breaking the trend line towards the downside. We have bearish earnings, bearish higher time frames. So now what we'll be doing is looking for continuation towards the downside, just due to the fact that we're underneath key areas being your 115. So our bias is bearish, and now we're going to be looking for pops to short towards the downside. So as you can see, what we're going to have marked out here is your opening range high and your opening range low. As you can see right here, if we zoom out, we're actually well beneath your previous day's low level, and we're breaking down on the higher time frame. So you know this ticker is bearish on the higher time frames. It also has relative weakness compared to the Qs. So if we go into the QQQ chart, as you can see here, we're actually inside of your previous day's range, whereas NVIDIA is well underneath your previous day's low. So you know this one also has relative weakness. So what we're going to be doing is looking for all pops to short on NVIDIA towards the downside. So we go back onto the 1 minute time frame here. What we're going to be doing is looking for any sort of order blocks, opening range retest for continuations towards the downside on NVIDIA. So you can see that price is pushing towards the downside now. What we have is displacement towards the downside. What I'm going to have marked out is this 1 minute order block, which also coincides with your 5 minute range. And we're going to be looking for an area of a retest for continuations towards the downside. So in my case, right, price was coming back up towards this order block. As you can see right here, I ended up taking a premature entry because I knew this was a higher time frame A+ setup. So I didn't want to miss out on this trade position. So I ended up taking a position here with a stop just to break above this key area. And the targets in this case was based off the higher time frames. So if you go into the daily chart, as you can see here, the first level that I was looking for was this mini daily gap, as you can see. And if you zoom out here, I was also looking for this imbalance as well, which is another higher time frame gap. So now you can go back onto the 5 minute time frame and we can use these areas as potential targets. So now we can go into the 1 minute time frame here and now play out the tape. And you can see that price is staying heavy on the NQ. You can see we're clearly creating lower highs right here. We're rejecting off of your 1 minute order block, which also coincides with the 5 minute opening range as well. So as long as we stay heavy underneath 113.50, I expect price to gravitate towards the downside. As you can see, price right there taps into our higher time frame objective, which is our daily gap. I ended up taking a partial position off right here, and I was leaving the rest for that continuation down towards that 110 level. And as you can see, price ended up tapping into our 110 level fairly nicely. And that's where I ended off taking off majority of my position. I ended up leaving trailers on this one, ended up getting stopped out on my trailers. But this right here ended up being a super solid trade towards the downside. As I mentioned, this was based off the higher time frame thesis. And as you can see, at the exact same time for the QQQ, we got underneath your previous day lows and we ended up having a super nice move down on the QQQ as well, which allowed NVIDIA to head lower towards its higher time frame objectives. So now let's go on to the next trade that I have. So as you can see this on my second example, this is Thursday, September the 5th. This ended up being just a mini wallet pattern scalp towards the upside. A lot of these trades that I'm going to show you guys were wallet patterns. I wasn't on full size. I was really only risking $1,000 on most of these scalps. The only trade that I was risking $2,000 was that Tesla trade, and that was actually on a regular size. I was just risking a little bit more, but most of the trades that I took was only risking $1,000, right? They're just wallet patterns, and there wasn't too much opportunity intraday this month. So that's why I kept my size relatively small, but it still ended up being a decent month because of that one trade that I'm going to show you. But this trade right here, as you can see, this was on Thursday, September the 5th. I ended up making $2,000 on this one, 40 contracts. $7,000 position size, risking 1.5 on the contracts, end up risking around $1,000. This one ended up being a 1.87 risk to reward ratio. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what I was looking at on the higher time frames. So as you can see right here, we're on the Amazon 1 hour time frame. And coming into this day, I wasn't bearish nor bullish. This was actually an intraday setup based off relative strength. As you can see right here, we ended up tapping the top of the gap fill 181, and we ended up gravitating all the way down towards the bottom of your gap. So you can see really we're inside the middle of the range, so I don't have too much of a bias on Amazon. This was more of an intraday setup, as I'm going to show you. So as you can see, I have the first 5 minutes played out here, and you can see within the first 5 minutes, we're actually got above your previous day's high. So you got above your previous day's high, you kind of broke outside of this downtrend as well. So what I'm going to be looking for is really continuation back up towards your 178 and your 179 on Amazon. So now I'm really going to be looking for 1 minute order blocks, potentially your 5 minute opening range for scalps back towards the upside. So as we kind of go back onto the tape here, you can see that price has a very nice push within the first 15 minutes of market open. The key areas that I'm going to have marked really is your opening range high and your opening range low. Now I can go back onto the 1 minute time frame. And as you can see here, I don't really have any order blocks, but we have a very strong push towards the upside. So if we are going to come back down towards a key level, it's going to be your opening range on the 5 minute time frame. And as you can see, price ended up coming right back into our opening range on the 5 minute, Once we had that nice candle confirmation right here, I took entries with a stop just to break below. And what I was looking for was just a quick scalp basically up towards that 178.9 on the higher time frames, which is our higher time frame objective. So as we play the tape, you can see that price taps into our one key level once again. And we end up having that nice move really back towards the upside, right? This was just a nice quick scalp off the 5-minute opening range with clear targets above being your 178. And you can see right here, I have the QQQ pulled up beside each other as well. And the reason why I was able to take this scalp is because the QQQ was very bullish as well. We're above our opening range on the 1 minute. We're actually holding your 5-minute opening range as well. So that's why I expected markets to gravitate higher, because there was alignment with the QQQ. The QQQ was bullish, Amazon was bullish. We had higher time frame objectives on Amazon, so that's why I ended up being just a nice scalp towards the upside. This was not a home run trade. This was not A+. This was just a nice wallet pattern for a move towards the upside on Amazon. So as you can see here, my next example is actually 2 trades. They're both the exact same thesis. The first time I got stopped out, and then I ended up re-entering on the exact same thesis on the 84% rule for a net gain of $4,800. So the first time I ended up losing 1.1R. Second trade I ended up making 3R. So I ended up making over $3,000 on this day. Let me show you exactly what I was looking for. So as you can see, we're on that NVDA that I was talking about. This was on Thursday, September the 12th. I ended up making $5,000 on the second trade, but the first trade I lost $1,800, and then on the second trade as well, I was risking $1,600. So I was risking around $3,000 on this day to make around $3,000. So I ended up being only a 1R day. Ended up being a really good trading opportunity. Just ended up being a little bit unfortunate that I got stopped out right at the bottom, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what I was looking for. So you can see we're on the 1 hour time frame on NVIDIA, and the previous days we ended up reclaiming our key areas. We actually ended up breaking back structure above our 110 area. So I'm fairly bullish on this day. We had a super strong push towards the upside. We're really reclaiming our previous area that we broke down from as well. So I'm bullish coming into NVIDIA, and I'm looking for that continuation back towards the upside. So you can see that coming in onto the 5-minute time frame on NVIDIA, you can see the first 5 minute, you can see that buyers are stepping in, and we're trying to get back above our previous day high level. So if you can get back above our previous day high level, I do expect price to gravitate back towards our pre-market highs. So if we go on to the lower time frames here, what we can have marked out is your opening range high. You can mark out your opening range high on the 5-minute time frame. What we have is price closed above our opening candle on the 1 minute with displacement as well. So what I like to see is this area be now used as support for continuation back towards the upside, towards where your pre-market highs in this case, as you can see right here. So I was looking for a retest of your opening range on the 5-minute, your opening candle on the 1 minute, and also your 1 minute order block as well. So you can see price comes back down into this area. That's where I look to get in with a stop just to break below, and I'm looking for high of day and continuations towards the upside. As you can see, we come fairly close to your pre-market high. You can see that I end up getting stopped out here on the 1 minute time frame. If you go and look at the 5-minute time frame as well, I'm still bullish on the 5-minute time frame due to the fact that we're around your previous day highs. If you look at the QQQ as well, it's showing some relative strength. The Qs is actually making a fresh low, whereas NVIDIA is making a higher low. So what we have here is relative strength on NVIDIA. So I'm still bullish. I'm looking for continuations back towards the upside. And as you can see right here, price comes back towards the upside. And now I know that I'm actually right on the thesis, right? I ended up getting stopped out, but my thesis is still intact. So what happened here was that I ended up going back in for the 84% rule with the exact same thesis, exact same stop, exact same entry, looking for that move back towards the upside. So you can see it, I got in as it came back into your 153. Price ended up tapping into this key level. You can see it held fairly nicely. Now we're creating our higher lows for a push back towards the upside, towards our original target, which was our pre-market high and continuation above. So you can see price ended up having a very nice push back towards the upside to our original target, right? If it doesn't work the first time and the exact same conditions present itself, this is what's called the 84% rule. So 84% of the time, it will work the second try. So I ended up taking partials here, and my next key levels were on the higher time frames. If you go over here, you can see I end up marking out my next key levels, which is all the way up towards 119. You go back onto the 1 minute time frame. I draw this out, and now we can play out the tape. And you can see right there, price ended up hitting my second and final profit target, which was our 119.60. Ended up being a super solid trade. You can see at the exact same time as well. Once NVIDIA ended up reclaiming our key areas, QQQ ended up having a reversal off low of day as well. This ended up being a super solid trade towards the upside. Too bad I ended up getting stopped out at the exact bottom on the first try, or this would have been a very solid day for me. So now let's go on to my next example that I have. As you can see, this is Tesla. This was on Thursday, September the 19th. Ended up holding a couple contracts overnight, but ended up making $15,000. This ended up being one of my best trades of the month and of the year as well. As you can see, I only had a $12,000 position size. I was only risking $1,500. So this ended up being a 10R trade, which is absolutely crazy. I didn't oversize on this one. I wasn't risking a ridiculous amount on Tesla. I just had a higher time frame setup and I held towards my higher time frame targets, and that being an absolutely beautiful trade. And let me show you exactly what I was seeing on the higher time frames. So you can see we're on the Tesla daily time frame, and as you can see, we had this gap level marked out. I talked about this example a couple times here, and what we have is this flat top break. So we have this flat top break. We have multiple rejections at this key area. So what we'll be looking for is price to get above 235. If we can use this 235, get above it, we can come all the way back up towards this gap fill, which is 245 on the higher time frames. So based off of this day, right, it was the day after FOMC, we had bullish price action. This was the first day that Tesla was showing strength. So we're looking for that continuation towards the top of the gap fill. So you can see we're on the 5-minute time frame here on Tesla. You can see within the first 5. So as you can see, we're on the 5-minute time frame here, and within the first 15 minutes, you can see Tesla has a very big push above our 234 key area, and now we're also above your previous day highs. So what we'll be looking for is this hold of your 235, 234 for essentially continuations back towards the gap fill, which is 245 on the higher time frame. Since we're inside the gap, we're now going to be looking for the gap fill. As you can see, price comes back down in towards your previous day highs. That's where I look to take a position. I had a pretty wide stop in this case because I had a higher time frame thesis. I was going to let the trade play out. So if it came back down towards your 234, I was going to add into a full position for a move back towards the upside. And in this case, my targets, as you can see, was this higher time frame gap level all the way up at 245 on the higher time frames. So go back onto the 5-minute time frame. I can draw this whole key area, right? Since we're now inside of the gap, I'm looking for this full gap fill on the higher time frames. I also had a couple key levels where I was looking to take partial profits just due to the fact that this gap level was fairly big. So since this gap fill was a fairly big gap towards 245, I also had levels that I was looking to take partial profits at. So the key areas that I had marked out was essentially this 1-hour imbalance that we have in the chart, and we can kind of drag this over and use this as potential areas we can take partials at. And now we can play out the tape. And you can see that right here, Tesla is staying strong. The days previous, what was happening is that Tesla was pushing towards upside, and what we had was a reversal. But you can see in this case, we're holding our key areas. We're holding our previous day highs. We're making higher lows. So price is getting bought up, right? The buyers are stepping in. And you can see at the exact same time as well, if you're looking at the QQQ on the 1-minute time frame, you can see that Tesla is relatively strong compared to the QQQ. So you can see the QQQ is really just consolidating within the first 30 minutes, whereas Tesla has a clear push towards the upside. We're above our previous day highs, so we're very much relatively strong on the day on Tesla. So what am I expecting? Continuation towards the upside because we're inside the higher time frame gap. We're relatively strong on the day. The buyers are stepping in, so I'm expecting continuation towards the upside. As you can see, Tesla was taking a while, but every single dip was getting bought up, and you can see the relative strength compared to the QQQ. You can see the Qs was around your opening range on the 5-minute, whereas Tesla was showing clear relative strength above previous high of day. So as long as the QQQ holds key levels, I expect Tesla to gravitate towards the upside. So I ended up taking partial positions off at your bottom of your 1-hour gap, but I was really looking for that higher time frame objective being your full gap fill and your top of your 1-hour gap fill as well. So you can see that price end up touching the top of our 1 hour gap. That's where I end up taking majority of my profits as well. And I end up leaving trailers for your 245, which end up not filling, but that was okay because this ended up being a super solid trade, A+ setup towards the upside. End up only risking $1,500 as I mentioned. I was up over $18,000 at one point, ended up giving $3,000 off the top, but ended up being a super solid trade nonetheless, ended up being the one trade that I needed to really make my whole month. So now let's go on to the last example that I have for us today. So you can see right here, this is my last example. This is on NVDA, Wednesday, September the 25th. And I always talk about it's not how much I made. The $3,500 is irrelevant. It's how much I risked. In this case, I ended up risking $1,000 on this one, ended up being a 3 risk reward ratio trade. And let me show you guys exactly what I was looking at on the higher time frames. So you can see coming into this day on NVIDIA, what we had was a lot of consolidation. We had a lot of consolidation. What we're forming is this wedge pattern. And what happened the day previous is that we ended up having news. The CEO stopped selling. So this is very bullish for the market and you can expect continuation. So we're above our 220. What can you expect? As long as we maintain above 220.85, you can expect that continuation back towards the upside on NVIDIA. So you can see that coming into market open, NVIDIA is fairly bullish. We're above our previous day highs. We have a strong push off of your previous day high level, and I expect that continuation back towards the upside. So the key levels I'm going to have marked out is your opening candle range. I'm also going to have marked out your previous day high as well. Now we can go on to the lower time frames. So you can see here we're fairly bullish on NVIDIA, and if you look comparison to the QQQ, you can see that the Qs are still inside the middle of the range. We're underneath your previous day high, whereas the NVIDIA is above your previous day high, so you know that there's relative strength on this name, and you're going to be looking for pullbacks on NVIDIA for continuations towards the upside. As you can see, price ended up having a nice retest of your 1 minute order block. In this case, I actually was not looking at NVIDIA at the time, so that's why I didn't get an entry off this 1 minute order block. Where I was going to be looking for next was this previous high to be used as a retest for that continuation back towards the upside. So the key area that I have marked out was this general area. And now I have marked out this 1 minute order block as well. So I'm going to be looking for continuations back towards the upside on NVIDIA. So as you can see right here, what we have is nice displacement towards the upside. We're coming back down to retest our general area, which is your previous resistance, turn into support. I like to see this area be used now for that continuation back towards the upside on NVIDIA. You can see price, we have that nice candle right here. That's where I went to go in long with a stop just to break below. And in this case, I was looking for the key level on the higher time frames, which is your 124.60. And as you can see right there, price ended up having a nice push towards upside towards our top of our range, which is our 124.60, and it being a super solid trade on NVIDIA, just a nice kind of wallet pattern for a move towards the upside. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Hope you guys learned something new. If you did, I appreciate it if you guys drop me a like and sub, and I'll see you guys next week for a brand new video. Peace.